Sure. Here is section 1 of your script, written in the first person, Mark, tightly focused, emotionally grounded, with a clear and concise storytelling style. Word count, approximately 760 words. When our youngest left for his first job out of state, the silence in our house became louder than anything else. For 25 years, our lives had revolved around school runs, soccer practices, parent-teacher meetings, family dinners. Then one day, it was just Helen and me, in a house that suddenly felt too big. We tried to adjust. At first, it was almost refreshing. We slept in on weekends, ate out on random Tuesdays, walked the dog in the evening without checking the time. But I could see it in Helen's eyes, something was missing for her. She was restless. The kids had been her full-time job. With them gone, she seemed unsure of what to do next. A few weeks later, she told me she wanted to go back to work. I thought it was a great idea. She was sharp, organized, and always had a way of getting things done. She applied for a few positions and landed an office manager job at a mid-sized architecture firm in town. She was thrilled. Nervous, too, but more excited than I'd seen her in a long time. The change was immediate. She started waking up earlier, planning her outfits the night before. Bought a new pair of heels. Got her hair done. I complimented her, told her she looked amazing. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years, full of energy, a little proud. Every evening, she came home with stories. The usual office drama, annoying software systems, someone's bad coffee-making skills. But one name started coming up more than the others: Jake. Jake forgot his password again. Jake brought in donuts. Jake's always late to meetings. At first, it sounded innocent. Office banter. I smiled, nodded, made a few jokes, but after a few weeks, it became a pattern. She talked about him almost every night. His jokes, his style, how he reminded her of someone from college. I didn't say anything. Why would I? She deserved to have new people in her life. And if someone made her laugh during a long workday, that was fine. Still, I started noticing little things. She got home later than usual, even when there were no events or meetings. She said they were swamped with projects, tight deadlines. Sometimes she'd come home in a completely different outfit than she left in. Oh, I spilled coffee and had to borrow a shirt. Other times, I'd ask about dinner and she'd say she already grabbed something at work. Once, I picked up her phone to hand it to her and saw a message from Jake. Nothing wild, just, "You're too much," face with tears of joy. It was casual enough not to raise alarms, but there was something about the way she snatched the phone and locked it instantly that stayed with me. I didn't want to be paranoid. I wasn't going to be that guy, the suspicious, over-controlling husband. So I told myself to let it go. I focused on my consulting work, met up with a few old friends, started running again. But in quiet moments, my thoughts kept circling back to Helen. Not in an obsessive way, more like a low hum of worry I couldn't shut off. One Friday night, she told me she had a work dinner. Casual. Just a small team get-together. I asked where, and she mentioned a place we used to go for anniversaries, not exactly a casual spot. She laughed it off, said Jake was obsessed with their steak and insisted they go there. I told her to have fun. She kissed me on the cheek and left wearing a dress I hadn't seen in months. I sat on the couch for hours that night, TV on, mind elsewhere. I wasn't even sure what I was feeling, not anger, not yet. Just an uncomfortable confusion. Like there was something in the room I couldn't see but knew was there. The next morning, she was quiet. Said she was tired. I didn't press. I just watched her from across the table while we drank coffee. She scrolled through her phone and smiled softly at something, but didn't share what it was. I wanted to ask. I wanted to say something. But I didn't. Looking back now, that was the moment I knew something had shifted. Not just in her, in us. We were still in the same house, but it didn't feel like we were in the same life anymore. I couldn't name it then, but I felt the first crack. And once you notice a crack, it's hard to stop seeing all the others that were always there. Here is section 2 of the script, written with clarity and emotional tension, maintaining a tight narrative flow and avoiding repetition. Word count, approximately 760 words. Helen started spending more time at the office. It wasn't just occasional late evenings, it became a routine. At first, I believed her when she said a big project was behind schedule, But when weekends started disappearing too, something shifted in me. She stopped asking if I wanted to do anything on Saturdays. Instead, she'd throw on jeans, grab her work bag, and say, "Don't wait up." I tried to stay rational. People get busy. Deadlines happen. But my gut wouldn't let it go. I started noticing how quickly she'd flip her phone screen down when I walked into the room. Her password changed. Notifications stopped popping up. One night, I caught a glimpse of her texting while smiling, then watching the screen like she was waiting for something. When I walked in, she acted like nothing happened. I didn't want to jump to conclusions without evidence. But doubt started clouding everything. I tried to reconnect. Suggested we go out for dinner. She said she had a late meeting. I proposed a weekend getaway. She said now wasn't a good time. Every attempt at closeness hit a wall. I asked her if everything was okay. She said I was imagining things and walked away. I started watching closer. One day, I was looking for my car keys and opened the side pocket of her purse by mistake. I found a receipt from a downtown bistro. Dinner for two. Not a business lunch. Wine, dessert, 2 entrees. It was dated last Tuesday. That was the night she said she worked late and grabbed something quick from the office kitchen. I didn't confront her. I needed to be sure. A few days later, I checked the GPS in her car. She always drove herself to work, and I never had reason to question it before. But there it was, a saved location that repeated several times over the last month. It wasn't her office or any familiar place. I looked it up. It was a small boutique hotel about 15 minutes from downtown. Not the kind of place anyone would go for business. That Friday, I told her I was meeting an old friend for golf. She barely looked up from her phone. I followed her after she left the house. Watched from 2 cars back as she pulled into the office parking lot. I waited. About 20 minutes later, I saw her leave again, this time in another outfit. She met someone in a silver car. I didn't recognize him until he stepped out. Jake, they hugged casually, then got into his car. I followed. Every mile made my chest heavier. They pulled into the parking lot of the same hotel from the GPS. No hesitation. No secrecy. They walked in together. I didn't go inside. I sat there in the car, staring at the entrance like it might rewind itself. I wanted to believe I was wrong, but reality doesn't leave room for hope once it's that clear. I don't know how long I stayed there. When I finally drove home, it felt like I was floating through someone else's life. I didn't tell her that night. She came home like nothing had happened. Said she was exhausted. Kissed me on the cheek. I nodded. Didn't say a word. The next day, I called my sister Laura. She always saw things clearly. I told her everything. She listened, then said, "You need to decide what you want to do. Don't act from anger. Act from clarity." I appreciated her calm, even though I didn't feel any of my own. The following week passed in a blur. I went through the motions. Ate alone. Slept with one eye open. Helen stayed on script, late nights, unexplained absences, vague explanations. Every lie sounded more rehearsed. I didn't confront her because I wanted her to reveal it on her own. But she never did. That hurt more than the act itself, that she could look me in the eye, lie so easily, and still sleep beside me like we were fine. That she thought I was too blind or too passive to know. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was hollow. The kind of emptiness that creeps in after trust dies. I replayed our memories in my head, over and over, trying to find where it started slipping, but betrayal never shows its face early. It waits until you've invested everything before it cuts deep, and now, I knew. Not just suspected, I knew. And nothing between us felt real anymore. Here is section 3 of your script. It continues the narrative directly and clearly, focusing on emotional resolution and reflection. Word count, approximately 765 words. I waited until the following Thursday. She came home at 9:15, same excuse, late meeting, they ordered takeout, everyone was exhausted. She walked in like she wasn't balancing 2 lives. I stood in the kitchen and asked her where she really was. She froze for half a second, then forced a smile and said, "You don't trust me now?" I said I wanted a real answer, not another script. She shifted her bag to the other shoulder, leaned on the counter, and repeated the lie. That's when I told her I knew about the hotel, the receipts, the GPS history, and Jake. I wasn't yelling. I didn't throw anything. I just laid it out, her face drained. She looked down, then at me, then sat at the table like her legs gave out. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "I didn't mean for this to happen." She said it started as a friendship. He listened to her. He noticed her. Made her feel young. Said she was brilliant, attractive, wasted at home. He wasn't married. No kids. Just available. One night they had too much to drink after a work event and crossed a line. After that, it got easier to keep crossing it. She said she wasn't looking for an affair. It just happened. Like gravity. She claimed it didn't change how she felt about me. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She kept talking, trying to explain the gap she felt after the kids moved out. How she felt invisible, routine, disconnected. Said she missed the version of herself she used to be before motherhood swallowed her identity. Jake reminded her of who she was back then. That's how she justified it. She cried hard. Said she was ashamed. That she still loved me. That Jake meant nothing beyond the attention he gave. She begged me not to give up on us, not after everything we'd built. I listened, but it felt like someone had muted the sound of my own emotions. I had no rage, no sorrow, just a kind of numb disbelief that this was my life now. That night, I slept in the guest room. She didn't knock. I lay there staring at the ceiling until morning. I thought about the early years. How we'd saved for our first house. The nights we ate instant noodles on the floor when we couldn't afford furniture. The hospital waiting rooms. The birthdays. The mortgage stress. I had believed in all of it. In us. But those memories felt like they belonged to someone else now. She offered to quit her job. Said she'd block Jake, go to therapy, do anything. But trust isn't a switch. You can't turn it back on just because someone says they're sorry. I told her I needed time. She nodded like she understood, but the gap between us was wide enough that even shared grief couldn't close it. Over the next few weeks, we tried counseling. It felt forced. The therapist asked questions that made sense on paper but didn't apply to where we were. I wasn't interested in rebuilding something that had been silently falling apart long before the affair. And Helen, she seemed more focused on being forgiven than understanding the damage she'd caused. Eventually, I asked her to move out. She didn't fight it. She found a small apartment near her office and packed quietly over 2 days. When she left, she hugged me like she still had a right to. I didn't hug back. The house was silent again, but not like before. This silence was heavier. Not the kind that follows peace, but the kind that follows truth. I spent nights in the kitchen with the lights off, replaying moments I should have paid more attention to. Regret doesn't arrive with a shout, it creeps in with whispers. Months passed. The kids still call, unaware of the details. I didn't tell them. They'll find out eventually, but it doesn't need to come from me. I started reading again. Took short trips. Got coffee by myself without checking the time. Slowly, I started to recognize myself again, not as part of a couple, just as a person. I'm not angry at her anymore. Anger takes too much energy. I'm just done. She made a choice, and so did I. We loved each other once, but love doesn't always survive betrayal. Some things, once broken, don't get fixed, they get buried, and you move on. I still think about her sometimes. Not with pain, just with a distant kind of recognition. Like seeing a familiar street you don't turn down anymore. And that's enough.